Hello, Sherlynn here again. And today is the story of... I almost gave it away, didn't I? I'm not going to. You're going to have to stick around and find out what the story is going to be. This is going to be the fourth story from the public domain Christmas stories. But whichever story it is, I hope you do enjoy it as much as I enjoy reading it to you. So without further ado, I shall begin. Hello, Sherlynn here. Guess what time it is? It's time for story number 4 in my Christmas series of the Christmas stories that I'm reading throughout the month of December. I hope you'll stick around to join me. And today's story is called A Christmas Fairy by John Strange Winter. It's from the children's book of Christmas stories, reprinted with permission of the Henry Altemus Company. I shall begin with A Christmas Fairy. It was getting very near to Christmas time, and all the boys at Miss Ware's school were talking about going home for the holidays. "I shall go to the Christmas festival," said Bertie Fellows, "and my mother will have a party, and my aunt will give another. Oh, I shall have a splendid time at home." "My Uncle Bob is going to give me a pair of skates," remarked Harry Wadman. "My father is going to give me a bicycle," put in George Alderson. "Will you bring it back to school with you?" asked Harry. "Oh, yes, if Miss Ware doesn't say no." "Well, Tom," cried Bertie, "where are you going to spend your holidays?" "I'm going to stay here," answered Tom in a very forlorn voice. "Here at school? Oh dear, why can't you go home?" "I can't go home to India," replied Tom. "Nobody said you could, but haven't you any relatives anywhere?" Tom shook his head. "Only in India," he said sadly. "Poor fellow, that's hard luck for you. I'll tell you what it is, boys. If I couldn't go home for the holidays, especially at Christmas, I think I would just sit down and die." "Oh, no, you wouldn't," said Tom. "You would get ever so homesick, but you wouldn't die. You would just get through somehow and hope something would happen before next year, or that some kind of fairy would be—" "There are no fairies nowadays," said Bertie. "See here, Tom, I'll write and ask my mother to invite you to go home with me for the holidays." "Will you really?" "Yes, I will. And if she says yes, we shall have a splendid time. We live in London, you know, and have lots of parties and fun." "Perhaps she will say no," suggested poor little Tom. "My mother isn't the kind that says no," Bertie declared loudly.
We interrupt this reading for a special transmission from the North Pole. Let's listen in.
Ho, 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 ho. Listen up, everyone. Quiet down now. Alabaster Snowball, give me a report on children behavior.
Yes, Santa. At last check, all the boys and girls have been very good this year.
Excellent. Sugar Plum Mary, how are the treats and sweets coming along? Is Mrs. Claus keeping you busy in the kitchen?
It's all sugar and spice and everything nice, Santa.
Ho, ho, ho. That's very good. Last but not least, one-horse open sleigh. Are the reindeer healthy?
Oh, yes, sir, Santa. Dasher and Dancer, Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donder and Blitzen are ready to get going.
And Rudolph?
His nose is glowing and shiny, Santa. They are all anxious for another run.
Ho, ho, ho. All good news. Now I need to talk to the elves in the toy shop. Now, where did they go, eh?
This has been a news break. We now return you to the reading of A Christmas Fairy.
In a few days' time, a letter arrived from Bertie's mother. The boy opened it eagerly. It said, "My own dear Bertie, I am very sorry to tell you that little Alice is ill with scarlet fever, and so you cannot come home for your holidays. I would have been glad to have you bring your little friend with you if all had been well here. Your father and I have decided that the best thing that you can do is stay at Miss Ware's. We shall send your Christmas present to you as well as we can. It will not be like coming home, but I am sure you will try to be happy and make me feel that you are helping me in this sad time. Dear little Alice is very ill indeed. Tell Tom that I am sending you a box for both of you with 2 of everything, and tell him that it makes me so much happier to know that you will not be alone there. Signed, your own mother." When Bertie Fellows received this letter, which ended all his Christmas hopes and joys, he hid his face upon his desk and sobbed aloud. The lonely boy from India who sat next to him tried to comfort his friend in every way he could think of. He patted his shoulder and whispered many kind words to him. At last, Bertie put the letter into Tom's hands. "Read it," he sobbed. So then Tom understood the cause of Bertie's grief. "Don't fret over it," he said at last. "It might be worse. Why, your father and mother might be thousands of miles away, like mine are. When Alice is better, you will be able to go home, and it will help your mother if she thinks you are almost as happy as if you could go now." Soon Miss Ware came to tell Bertie how sorry she was for him. "After all," said she, smiling down on the 2 boys, "it is an ill wind that blows nobody good. Poor Tom has been expecting to spend his holiday alone, and now he will have a friend with him. Try to look on the bright side, Bertie, and to remember how much worse it would have been if there had been no boy to stay with you." "I can't help being disappointed, Miss Ware," said Bertie, his eyes filling with tears. "No, you would be a strange boy if you were not. But I want you to try to think of your poor mother and write her as cheerfully as you can." "Yes," answered Bertie, but his heart was too full to say more. The last day of the term came, and 1 by 1, or 2 by 2, the boys went away until only Bertie and Tom were left in the great house. It had never seemed so large to either of them before. "It's miserable," groaned poor Bertie as they strolled into the schoolroom. "Just think if we were on our way home now. How different." "Just think if I had been left here by myself," said Tom. "Yes," said Bertie, "but you know when one wants to go home, he never thinks of the boys that have no home to go to." The evening passed and the 2 boys went to bed. They told stories to each other for a long time before they could go to sleep. That night they dreamed of their homes and felt very lonely. Each tried to be brave, and so another day began. This was the day before Christmas. Quite early in the morning came the great box of which Bertie's mother had spoken in her letter. Then, just as dinner had come to an end, there was a peal of the bell, and a voice was heard asking for Tom Egerton. Tom sprang to his feet and flew to greet a tall, handsome lady, crying, "Aunt Laura! Aunt Laura!" And Laura explained that she and her husband had arrived in London only the day before. I was so afraid, Tom," said she, "that we should not get here until Christmas Day was over, and that you would be so disappointed. So I would not let your mother write you that we were on our way home. You must get your things packed up at once and go back to London with me. Then Uncle and I will give you a splendid time." For a minute or two, Tom's face shone with delight. Then he caught sight of Bertie and turned to his aunt. "Dear Aunt Laura," he said, "I am very sorry, but I can't go." "Can't go? And why not?" "Because I can't go and leave Bertie here all alone," he said stoutly. "When I was going to be alone, he wrote and asked his mother to let me go home with him. She could not have either of us because Bertie's sister has scarlet fever. He has to stay here, and he has never been away from home at Christmas time before. And I can't go away and leave him by himself, Aunt Laura." For a minute, Aunt Laura looked at the boy as if she could not believe him. Then she caught him in her arms and kissed him. "You dear little boy, you shall not leave him. You shall bring him along, and we shall all enjoy ourselves together. Bertie, my boy, you are not very old yet, but I am going to teach you a lesson as well as I can. It is that kindness is never wasted in this world." And so Bertie and Tom found that there was such a thing as a fairy after all. The end. Wasn't that lovely? I know you were probably expecting a little fairy somewhere in the story. But fairies come in all sorts of sizes and spirits. They come as tall people, tall young ladies who are doing something good in the world, or young men who are trying to further someone's enthusiasm or encouraging them with wonderful words. Fairies are not just little fairy tale people. They live amongst us all the time in our spirit and in their spirit as well. That is the end of story number 4, A Christmas Fairy. And I hope you'll stick around for story number 5. It's getting closer to Christmas. Stay with me now. And until we meet again, I bid you good day.